the system, and it has things that it needs from the system. So, chickens need food, warmth, protection. They need straw. They need nest boxes. They need water. They need grit. Pigs need food, water, shelter. They need wallows. Cattle need grass. Oh, you start to get the idea. And so when you start to integrate these things together, you get that interconnectedness and then the synergistic relationships. And then you stack in some multifunctionality, some redundancy, and of course ethics, which I'll tell a story towards the end that will kind of hit home about what I mean by that. So just a couple things to think about. So I ferment my pig feed in raw milk. So there's that's from some of the skim milk we made yesterday, or cream we took yesterday. So tonight when I ferment their feed again, I'll mix that into the feed. Raw milk has lysine in it, which is an enzyme that is an essential enzyme for pork. So that cuts down on the amount of supplements I need. Cows produce skim milk. The pigs will eat it and do quite well on it. But in order to ferment this pig feed, and the reason I ferment it is that grains have amino acids and different chemicals on them to resist digestion. And so that's why sourdough bread, which we had earlier, is better for us. For the same reason it's better for pigs. So by fermenting it in a 5-gallon bucket ahead of time, we can pre-digest it so the pigs get more benefit out of the grain, which means I have to feed them less grain, which means it's more cost effective for me. They also get more nutrients and it provides, it's better pork. But in order to ferment this year round, it needs heat. In the summertime, I can just ferment them under these lids, and I'm rebuilding these feeders right now. But what I use is swather canvas screwed to a 2x12. And so when I feed these guys, the old ones lasted about 5 or 6 years, and a boar that I had this year with his tusk just tore him to shreds. So I'm building some new ones. But I'm basically able to pour my feed buckets right through this little slot here. So all the pigs, so I can feed 30 pigs in, from this feeder wrapped around to where the swather canvas ends there, is what it takes. So, but in order to feed them year round, in order to ferment it year round, which I've done trials where I've had some pigs where I don't ferment, and some that I do, they do much better on the fermented feed, but that needs heat. And so that chicken house provides heat. So in the winter months, I actually ferment my 5-gallon buckets inside that chicken house. That building never goes below freezing because every chicken produces like 5 BTUs. And so it's just a 2x6 wall building, and there's ventilation that comes through it all year round. But even when it's minus 40, it doesn't go below freezing without any additional heat. So one of them is because of the chickens. The other reason is just by design. So if you look at where the sun is right now, it's kind of it's over there quite a bit. But when the higher the sun is in the sky, the warmer weather is, and so the less heat I want to go into the building. The cooler it is, the lower the sun is in the sky. In the wintertime, on the solstice, it's 14 degrees above the horizon. At that angle, all the sun goes into this window. It helps heat it up, even in the wintertime. And then by the time the warmer days come along, all of that sunlight is excluded from the building just by this overhang. So you can figure all that out with angles. So yeah, this building heats and cools itself. There's ventilation, there's a low vent here, there's a high vent on the back. So it heats and cools itself year round, and it also provides a multifunctional aspect of the fermented feed in the wintertime. This chicken house, the door is right here to let the chickens up. There's a reason, so this entire building used to be up by the house up there. We moved the whole thing down here because we knew that there was going to be interconnections and synergies that would result from it. And so by putting this door right next to the corral, even in the wintertime, the chickens will actually go out and forage. If anybody has chickens, they'll notice that they don't go out into the snow. They hate getting their feet in the snow. They will not do it. I have chickens that go out in -30 because the animals keep this entire corral plowed all winter long. And by having the door right next to this, all I have to do is keep this little area plowed here, which it's under the overhang, so it hardly ever gets snow. And then they can just walk through and get into the corral. And all winter long, they can forage through the straw. They can eat on the pig feeders, any wasted feed that the pigs eat. The cows, when they're eating their hay, they can eat through that. They actually eat the pig manure and the cow manure. But the chickens also help to reduce the parasites in the cattle. So if you look at our dairy cows right now, none of them have lice. We haven't used vaccines, antibiotics, any chemicals at all, any fertilizers, anything for 30 years. But our animals don't have lice. That's crazy. One of the projects I'm working on right now is a ranch in BC. They're currently using all the chemicals, and they still have lice. Why? They don't have chickens. The chickens go through this entire corral and keep it clean of lice all year round.
And you have 150 chickens?
About 150. Our numbers might be a bit low right now, but this system works for about 150.
And this size, like this,
that's a pretty good balance, yeah. But you could, ideally you'd go up to 400, which is quota. It depends on what your goal. You could easily scale this thing to 400. You could have, this year I'm going to do 40 pigs. I'd like to have female cows, and then, yeah, this building isn't big enough for that many, but if I attached a greenhouse to it, I wouldn't have a movie. Because in the summertime, it's fine, because they spend all their time outside. It's just in the wintertime. But if you can get them a bit of extra forage space, they would be they'd be okay. But you could do the same system with 6 chickens and 1 pig and a goat. It doesn't matter. I know a guy who has rabbits that live in his chicken coop, and they actually do the rooting around inside the chicken coop. So you can do this. Don't copy the practices. Look at the principles behind everything. So yeah, the chickens act as my pest control, and they get rid of any parasites for the pigs and the cattle, which is, again, it's incredible. Like those cows were locked in this corral this entire winter. Again, because of how much straw we put down, and the pigs are rooting it up all the time. So in maybe on Monday or Tuesday, we're going to get corral cleaners to come in, and for about $1,000, they'll clean this entire corral out, and they'll spread it right next to us here, which is a grain land, which is where we're trying to grow grain. Our soils aren't quite to the point where we can grow grain, but there's been years where the only thing we've purchased is diesel fuel, salt, livestock mineral, and a few equipment parts and baler twine. Like we've produced all of our own grain, all of our own hay, all of our own water, everything else. And we can get to that point again, but our soils are in rough shape right now, and so we're trying to invest in our bank account of our soil before we start living off the interest. So we are buying grain off of our farm right now, and we're not buying hay anymore. But yeah, at some point, we will have 10 or 15 acres of grain just over there, and every year the manure from this will go on that grain land, and we will grow. If we can get 50 to 100 bushels per acre, that would be all the grain we would need for our chickens and pigs, and we would scale the system to match